Welcome to Soft Serve, your place to soften into your feminine goodness and show up the way your soul came to serve. I am Mads Williams, and I help women rediscover self-pleasure, self-love, and self-trust. I had this really interesting experience this week where I realized that I felt really sexy. And I know that might sound insane, but it's not just how I see myself. It was like I broke the fourth wall with people outside of me, and I realized that I am perceived as sexy. And this is all sounding really intensely up my own ass. But the reason why it was such a shock was that I found a photograph of myself when I first moved to the UK. And so I was 30, about to be 31. I'd just broken up with my ex-boyfriend, and we'd been together for 9 years since I was 21. And I had, in so many ways, lost myself. I think that I was following what my brain thought would give me the things I thought I wanted. And slowly but surely, I was losing my magic and my fizz. That's the best way I can describe it. So I found this photograph of when I first arrived in London, and there is just no sex appeal in this gorgeous angel. She's so sweet. I really love her. Looking back at her, I think of her really fondly, but no part of her was aware of her own beauty or her own power or how she could yield her sexual energy. And so it really got me thinking, like, wow, that's a lot of change in 4 years. What have been the things that have contributed to it? What I love about having a really devoted pleasure practice is that I can now say to the people that feel safe, which hopefully you, my listeners, I can safely say I am very sexy in the way that you could say I'm super fit. I'm really fit. If you spent a lot of time in your life actively training or running or going to the gym or whatever it might be. So it's this beautiful thing where you grow your confidence purely by showing up to the practice. And then it's not just something you're trying on or something you're trying to perform. It actually becomes embodied. It's more than an identity piece. It becomes part of your cells. And I really believe that we get the circumstances we need to be the person we're supposed to be, to show up and serve the way we're supposed to and help the way we're supposed to. And there was certainly a big chunk of 2025 where I got really obsessed with finding a boyfriend. Anyone who knows me knows I'm incredibly independent. And actually, up until last year, I would say I'd gone the other way where I was like so terrified of commitment or losing myself in relationships that I was trying to pretend I was the casual girl. But as we know, there's like nothing casual about me or sex. So actually, dropping that facade's been really fucking amazing. But in this process of getting really fixated on finding love and why don't I have it? And can I spiritual girly my way out of this? And how can I pass tests? And what am I missing? What I really came to find was that there was a whole ancestral theme around rejection. And there was the way that I felt rejected with my own family. And there was so much like meaty, gorgeous self work for me to do. But fundamentally, on this end of coming out of that, what I would honestly describe as desperation energy, what it's given me is this beautiful space of being solo, of being able to work on these practices in a really strong foundational way. And it's something that I now believe that even if you're in a relationship, should be a priority, should be a huge component of how you spend time with yourself and how you access your sensual energy. Just in the way you would not ask your partner to do a yoga practice for you and expect it to have the benefits on your life, you wouldn't rely on or completely outsource your connection to sexual energy through them. See, this week working out, oh, I have sex appeal was actually so fucking delightful. And it didn't hit me like a total surprise, but it was just being able to see the fruits of your labor in front of you. Soft serve, running this portal and sharing these tools with women has really helped me recognize and own that, yes, this is now a deeply integrated part of how I move through the world. It honestly impacts how I hold my body, what my posture's like, how I move when I'm in my bikinis, how I feel when I'm making out with someone, how I don't hold back my stomach or my folds or my whatevers. It's all out to be witnessed and enjoyed and celebrated. Sometimes I think what can happen when we are disconnected from our body, whether that's from lack of touch or lack of sight, there can be this notion that we spend all our time covered up in clothing. So then when we are trying to share this really secret, almost hidden part of ourselves with someone external, with a partner or perhaps someone new, there's all this room for all the unexpressed doubt or disconnection to suddenly come tumbling out in this really intimate act. So, being able to reclaim a pleasure practice and time with yourself to get to see how you move, to get to see what you enjoy, to start celebrating the stretch marks or that part of your vulva that you didn't know existed, or to see, oh, yes, my ass is really fucking close to the opening of my vagina. How interesting. All these tiny little things that sound trivial when you say them out loud, but are often a huge part of the female disconnection to our anatomy. So, a big part of owning your sex appeal is actually knowing what you got going on. What do you look like? Who are you? Both from a personality perspective, a pleasure preference perspective, but literally a physical, this is how I look. This is my beautiful body that I get to worship and speak with and spend time with. Introducing beautiful self-talk has absolutely shifted my life. I look at the version of me in that photograph I was describing, and no part of me was telling her how beautiful she was. No part of me was celebrating her uniqueness. I would have definitely been feeling brave and bold and courageous, but my internal self-talk was not kind. It was still geared towards self-judgment and self-critique, whereas now it's geared towards love and appreciation and adoration. And I often say that if anyone was inside my brain, they would think I was a total sicko for how gorgeous I am with myself. But what's interesting around self-talk like that is it does extend to how you then show up in a room, because you start believing you're worthy of being there, because the person who's spending the most time with you, yourself, is reinforcing that you are worthy. The other thing that happened when I dedicated myself to a regular self-pleasure practice, and I didn't realize it until friends mirrored it back to me, is that I will routinely stroke my body. So if we're sitting having a conversation, I will be stroking my arm, or I might stroke my leg, or even play with the back of my neck. Or I've noticed even I'll be walking around town on days where I might be feeling like I need more support, and I'll be cupping my breasts. Like there's this real tending to myself and my body's physical needs, knowing that it's this physical form that requires touch. And again, that notion of I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and in this state that helps support that. I think being single really means that it has been a necessity to tend to myself. But in the different practices that don't even feel particularly sexual, but are really connecting me to my senses, things like self massage or sitting in front of the mirror, moisturizing my body, or sunbathing at beautiful times of the day and really feeling and concentrating on where is the heat hitting my cells? Where is it hitting my skin? Absorbing that pleasure, not just rushing past it. All these things activate a certain level of receiving and presence that is absolutely connected to how in our sexual energy we are. And if we are present to our sexual energy, we are sharing this frequency of sex appeal. We have our antenna up, as one of my beautiful friends says. We are comfortable in that vibrational force coming from us. I had a friend say to me today when we were talking about this idea of being able to own your sex appeal or own that people perceive you as sexy. And she hypothesized that I must have trouble with men giving unwanted attention. And even in that, there was this beautiful realization that when you are really in touch with your sexual energy, you feel really in control of it. You feel really, again, like you might know how to move your bicep really solidly in contrast to your tricep because of the way you exercise it. The more you spend in your own energy and your own sexual essence, you understand when you want to open up the door to let someone inside it. But you also understand when you get to wear it like a beautiful coat or when you get to dance or flirt with it. So often I will think of sharing my energy or my sexual essence in a really light way, in my feminine openness. So I will receive that smile. I will receive that comment. I will receive that invitation. And I will lightly return it with a state of openness, knowing that I can shut it down at any point. I think for me personally, understanding the depth that I want to engage in physical penetration with, there is a real discernment that comes at that point of sharing my sexual energy. But before then, there is a real lightness. There is this feeling of not having to think about it, just in the way that if you were very strong, you would understand and appreciate what level of weights you could pick up, what box of heavy things you could move around the house. Perhaps I need to find a better analogy, but thinking of it as a devotion, a practice, something that you show up to consistently throughout your week, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, 1 hour on the weekend, these types of things where you're really putting aside time, whether that is journaling, speaking to your yoni, whether that is gazing in the mirror, whether that is actual penetration with a dildo, or exploring internally and externally with your hands. All these different things that connect you to the sensations in your body start showing up in your external life. There is no shortcut to owning your sex appeal that doesn't involve awakening your genitalia, that doesn't involve spreading and circulating that energy from your vulva up and through your chest, up through your heart space, up through your breast, up to your third eye, up and around you, just literally like swirling. It's like when you see a high tide and she's just raw and she's spraying all that beautiful white wash around. That's sexual magnetism. That's the feminine essence. That is you walking around with your sex appeal for all to see. But again, in control, not performing, not showing off, not sexualizing yourself. I think this is a really big part of my sexual practice and the difference between feeling like external things like clothing or makeup or suggestive behaviors. All those different things were an attempt to embody a version of me I guess I was craving. Whereas the impact of showing up time and time again with myself means that nothing is thought through, nothing is separate from my nature. The more I'm in my sexual practice, the more I am myself. That's what's so fucking powerful about this. I had two of the peaches who just took soft serve mention how for them, realizing that this was the foundation of all the work they needed to do. Before taking this portal, they thought that this was secondary, that it was an investment they could make later down the line. But their reframe of understanding that all of us gets built from this, all of our creativity, all of our ability to be ourselves, all of this confidence and this depth of self comes from a rich connection with ourselves. And what is more intimate than the way we are with our sexual organs, with our sexual self, with our sexual house, with our sexual center? So, how do we own our sex appeal? We own our time with ourselves, we prioritize it, we celebrate it, and we use it to fuel our life. I think all of us might know that feeling when we try and do something from punishment or because we think we should, and then there is no enjoyment, there is no pleasure in it. It becomes another self criticism tool for when we haven't spent time there. Whereas this is the opposite. We are here for the journey, not just the destination, particularly when it comes to elongated pleasure and moving away from clitoral orgasms into the deeper vaginal work. So, starting how you want to go on, thinking of this as something that's fueling and energizing your life. How can you spend time with yourself before you're about to do something creative? How can you spend time with yourself before you're about to go to a big event where you want to feel fantastic? Allowing yourself to see, again, the fruits of your labor, allowing yourself to see how it benefits you so that it becomes this gorgeous ritual that really enriches your life and you want to return to it. You want to return to yourself. The other beautiful thing about owning your sex appeal is owning your adult. And this might be really niche. This might very much be spoken by a 34-year-old Peter Pan who's only just felt like I've begun to reach my adult self. But I had this thought this week as well when mulling over this idea of sex appeal and owning it and honoring it. And dating back to London when I arrived, when older men would hit on me or cross what I would at that point have called a line, it was so surprising to me. I was so in my little kid. I had been so sheltered from my actual age because I hadn't embodied my full woman. I hadn't embodied my full sexuality. Therefore, there was a real innocence, which completely still exists. I absolutely cherish my innocence. But this was different. This was a rejection, or this was me missing that I was growing up and amplifying that disconnect between what my body looked like, what my face looked like, and how I felt internally. So this week I had this experience where I met someone who was older, who had beautiful sex appeal. And in that moment, the conversation in my head became, oh, are they too old for me? Am I interested? Versus before, which would have been a real damning of them for treating me in a particular way. Whatever your stance is on intergenerational dating is fairly irrelevant to this point. The point was that in me owning my sexual practice, I've finally owned that I'm a woman, and therefore I understand what that signal is that I'm putting out with men. That there is a dance, there is a dynamic. And again, I'm in control of it. I know when to close it, when to walk away, when I feel safe, when I don't, when I want to flirt. But I have much more self-awareness of how I'm perceived and how I get to choose what is right for me. Less of this bumbling along, feeling like a kid, being confronted when people mirrored back my adult. It's a really interesting aspect of doing this work. And just like I was mentioning with the peaches who took soft serve, it's really powerful because so often we are still outsourcing our decisions. We are still running things by our parents or asking our friends what they think. And of course, a level of that is absolutely fine, depending on your connection to your intuition and your ability to lead the life you really desire. But when you start having a real adult to adult connection with yourself, you start seeing it in the choices you make. You start seeing it in your work. You start seeing it in the types of relationships you want to have and who you want to spend your time with and what you want to spend your money on and what holidays you choose to go on and decline and all these things. So much comes from us being connected to that core of ourselves. And being connected to our core comes faster and faster the more we spend intimately with our sexual energy. That has absolutely been my experience. I could talk about it forever, but I want to leave us there understanding that owning sex appeal starts with owning your body, owning your pleasure, and spending time with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Soft Serve. I will be releasing portal dates for the summer Soft Serve edition, which I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see which gorgeous peaches join us so that we can start cultivating this really powerful practice together and circulating sensual goddess magnetism throughout the world. It has healed me on so many levels. It will continue to. And I can't wait for you to experience the magic yourself. Sending huge love, and I will talk to you soon.